Hey folks, JD here, and today we're looking at this, the MJX X600 Hexacopter. What a fantastic little device. I'm very much hoping this is going to be. As you will see, there are little droplets of water on her. I have just taken her up for her first flight, just to ensure that I have her calibrated correctly. So far, she was pulling too much to the front, but that is when this little knob comes into handy here as well. It gives you the amount of power going through to the rotors, so whether you have 0 or pretty much as it states, it's not 0 power, it just means a minimum amount right the way up. If you then crank it to the right to 100%, that gives it all the power these motors can handle. I wouldn't really advise you having it on 100%. One, don't really want to burn out the battery any quicker than the 8 minutes flight time that you already have, and secondly, you don't want to burn out the rotors. So that being said, we're going to take her up. So we're just going to bind the quadcopter, there we are, to the transmitter. Oh no, so, oh there we are. Let's turn it on first. Yep, there we go. Right, okay, so once again, let's go back through. Let's bind the transmitter to the hexacopter. There we are, all bound. We have no trim on whatsoever. We're using stick mode 2, which is the throttle on the left analog and the movement on the right. Okay, so here we go. Just by clicking the throttle up ever so slightly, you'll start to see a little bit of power going through the blades. Now, this isn't just as simple as up your crank and off you go, and then that's it, you're flying. You've got to do it in small increments. Let her take the balance and then go. Right. So, don't forget that this particular hexacopter is unlike anything that I have ever flown, in so much of this little sort of ratchet system on the analog stick. So we've got a slight breeze here today, not much to be concerned about, but I'm just going to be taking her nice and slow as I'm getting used to the controls for the first time. So up we go. So not forgetting that the orange is the back of the hexacopter and the blue is the front. Okay, so we seem to be slightly underpowered here, but that's okay. We'll just bring her down a little bit. Here she comes in. She is lovely. Now it takes a little bit to configure her before she goes up, obviously with the trim and the configuration of how much power you want through to these motors. But all in all, so far, for a larger quadcopter, once you've configured that and she's up in the air, you're pretty much going to be clean sailing. So we've got a dog that seems to have come onto the pitch who doesn't like hexacopters or quadcopters. So what I'm going to do is just try and see if I can keep this out of its way for the second. Right, there she goes, making quite easy work of this slight breeze that we have today. Again, that is the amazing thing about the Hex, the having the 6 motors rather than just having the 4. With any other quadcopter, you would be finding that it would be able to cut through this slight breeze and be able to fly without any issues, but you would notice that it would struggle quite a lot. So let's bring her down a little bit. Oh, bit of extra power there. Just letting the wind help a little bit. You can see she's wobbling ever so slightly. Okay, let's bring her down a little bit. Let's bring her over to me. Bit of power. Let's turn her around. She seems to be gliding really, really nicely. I mean, I'm not doing a lot of this gliding motion. She seems to be doing a lot of that herself. This is something that the hexacopter is extremely well equipped for, is just moving through the air ever so nicely. Okay, let's bring her down. Right, so that was a little test flight. she seemed to handle it pretty well. There's a little bit of configuration that needs to be done. Obviously the main configuration being that you have to ensure that this power nodule here isn't cranked up all the way. Otherwise, without balancing the rotors, she's just going to fly backwards or fly any way that she wants to. So let's go back to our little stump over here. This wind does seem to be picking up a little bit, so I don't want to obviously be flying this in dangerous conditions. So I'm going to take her up one last time, we'll take her around, we'll see how she handles, and then we'll go from there. So, not to forget, this time, let's just push her up a little way until she starts to take the breeze, and then once she does that, then you can quite nicely just control her. There we go. So, bit of power. Oh no. Relied a little bit too much there on the breeze. So she is quite a large, quite a high quadcopter. So let's just take her off from the grass there. Okay, so a little bit of trim needed on the front a little bit, because she is drifting a little bit. So there we go. Up she goes, handling quite well. Let's give her a bit more power. Let's turn her around. Okay, let's take her up one last time then. So let's just take her up, let's just have a little look. I mean, the wind is changing, the weather, it has started to pick to rain. I don't want to damage this copter, and obviously I don't want to be flying her in dangerous conditions. So first off, what we're going to do is we're just going to apply a little bit of throttle, let her take off on her own accord, nice and gently, and then control her from there. Okay, so up we go. I do like watching the hexacopters just hover, because they are very adept to being able to. Again, very, very agile in her responsiveness. She is absolutely excellent when you have her up in the air. Obviously the configuration part is something that does take a little bit to complete, but once you have, as you can see, you can fly her without much problem. Okay, let's bring her down a little bit. She's handling the drop in altitude and acceleration really, really well. It is something that you're going to want to watch with the hexacopters, because they do take off and they do accelerate really quickly, obviously down to the fact that they have the extra 2 motors. Let's bring her down a little bit. See, she hovers very nicely. Okay, let's take her around. There we go, flying against the wind now, not having much bother. Stop her down a bit again. Okay, let's accelerate her. Okay, brilliant. So up we go. Let's not forget to drop her down a little bit. Let's not have her going too high. Okay, let's bring her back to me. Oh, just so much fun. This is, I mean, I have a lot of fun flying the quadcopters anyway, and, you know, the hexacopters. But this one just seems to be, it just seems to have been built with fun in mind, and it's certainly something that comes across. Okay, let's bring her over to me and let's bring her down. Oh, bit of a hard landing, but she survives very, very well. Obviously she's made from this extremely durable plastic. Obviously you're not going to want to drop her from the air any more than than is necessary. So let's just apply, I am forgetting to just apply a little bit of power before taking off. This is not something I've come into contact with. Let's take her back to the stump then. Okay, so final thoughts. This hexacopter is very agile, she's very manoeuvrable. The main problem that I had when I first when I first tried to fly her was this particular button here. Don't forget, this is the power button. It does require a little bit of configuration. So what I would do, and what I did do, is I've moved it down to the 0 mark, and as she's up in the air, and as she's flying, I've just slightly twisted her to the halfway mark just to give her a little bit more power. I found that this doesn't cause any issues when she's flying, but I did find that it is quite a bit of an annoyance at the beginning, because there's nothing in the manual that actually states, hang on, you've got to configure it, or anything like that. So again, MJX, really happy with this particular hexacopter. A lot like the quadcopter that we flew a couple of weeks ago. Very stable. I mean, it's built extremely well. Main negative point though has got to be this particular button here. Once you've got it configured, she flies lovely, but until you've got it configured, she's not going to fly at all. You're going to try and take off and she's going to hit the floor and just go her own way. Another little thought as well is, if you are using the standard left analog stick for throttle, you are going to want to be careful of this ratcheted system, as it does take a little bit to get used to as well. It's not just as simple as taking her off and then controlling the balance and then making sure that she flies true. You are going to have to apply power first a little way until you see the motor start to turn, and then when you're about just under halfway, then apply a bit more and then take off. So you're going to want to stabilize first, then take off. That being said, it's a bit more of a professional quadcopter. I wouldn't recommend it for beginners, but intermediate and advanced users, you wouldn't have any problem in flying it, and it's really fun to do so as well. So there we are, folks. I hope you've enjoyed. Don't forget to subscribe to YouTube, this channel, if you haven't already. If you have, then thank you ever so much. It does mean the world. Don't forget to check out our blogger sites as well. There you'll have full of written reviews are done on every single hexacopter and quadcopter that we've flown. The blogger side of it has only been started up recently, so I am in sort of trying to catch up with all the other flight tests that we've done prior to blogger going live. Don't forget to check out our website as well, quadcopter.center. On there are a couple of other reviews as well, and a bit more information as to why I do this and the fun that I have in doing so. And also don't forget that in a couple of days time we're going to have another quadcopter or hexacopter to unbox and then fly, so please join me then. So until then, my friends, happy flying.